So some of you watching this video are the perfect hair transplant candidates, while others, watching this video are just terrible hair transplant candidates. So in this video, I'm going to tell you about the 6 signs of somebody who's the perfect candidate for hair transplant. Keep watching. Watching My Hair Implants, the best YouTube channel on all things hair transplant. My name is Jabril. What do you mean you still haven't subscribed? So the first sign is that the person has stable hair loss. By stable hair loss, I mean people would look at you and say, oh, so-and-so has always had the same hair. It's, it's receding a little bit here, but it's just been like that for years. That's a really good sign, because stable hair loss means that we can plan ahead. The surgeon knows that, if he or she does this will be the result. If your hair loss is accelerating, month by month, you're losing more hair, you're getting thinner, then even if the surgeon transplants hair in one particular area of your head, that means other places are going to be bald shortly after. It's virtually impossible to plan ahead. The second sign that somebody is the perfect hair transplant candidate is that this is their first hair transplant. As in, they've never had a hair transplant before. In my personal opinion, once you have a hair transplant, things change. You lose donor hair. Well, you don't lose donor hair, but your donor hair gets moved. I just don't think you can ever reach your peak potential after the first hair transplant. You are always kind of topping up that first hair transplant. So just by pure maths, you have less donor hair to play with. So you can never be considered the perfect hair transplant candidate after you've already had one procedure. Which is why I always say, think about that first procedure very, very carefully. Do your research. If you're not sure, consult with me and I'll point you in the right direction. And by the way, I'll leave my details in the description below. The third sign of the perfect hair transplant candidate is that they are Norwood 4 or below. So if you don't know the Norwood Hamilton scale, it's just basically a scale we use to measure hair loss. So I think some people might disagree, but I think if you are 4 or below, I think that's really the sweet spot. Obviously, we're hoping for 1 or 2, but to be honest, if you are, scale 1 or 2 on the Norwood scale, you probably wouldn't go for a transplant. You'll just kind of comb your hair different or something. Realistically, anything Norwood 4, Norwood 3, you can get amazing transforming hair transplant results. The next sign is to do with your hair type. So I found the ideal hair type for hair transplant is the kind of curly, wavy type. And this is mostly found in 3 groups of people. Afro type hair, perfect for hair transplant. They have other issues, but in terms of density and the texture of the hair is absolutely perfect. Number 2 is Middle Eastern hair, and number 3 is Hispanics. All these 3 groups, they have really the perfect hair type for hair transplant. Good density, good coverage. If they get the right clinic and the right surgeon, their results can be spectacular. And the next sign is to do with scarring, and specifically people who are less prone to scarring. A hair transplant is an invasive procedure. Your skin is cut, so there's going to be some scarring, and especially with certain techniques like FUT, there's going to be more potential for scarring. So if a person is really prone to scarring, they can definitely, they shouldn't really have FUT. But if you are not prone to scarring, if you heal very quickly, then that opens up the option of FUE and FUT. And some people just get better results with FUT. So if you don't scar easily, then you just have more options with your hair transplant, which is good. And the next sign is to do with hair loss products, specifically products that slow down the rate of your hair loss. And the ideal candidates have been using these products for a year or 2 at least before their procedures. In fact, some clinics insist that you've been trying and using certain products before your procedure. I know this is not a popular topic. People just don't like. People just want to have a hair transplant and not do anything, and then the hair just sprouts out everywhere. It's not that simple. Sometimes you have to use products to boost your results, and more importantly, using these products will slow down the rate of your hair loss, and they will strengthen and thicken your existing donor hair. So they help with your hair transplants, and they help with the results after your hair transplant. So if you are at least open to trying these hair loss products, then you are almost the perfect candidate for a hair transplant. So just out of interest, how many of these factors do you tick yourself? So how many of these do you have yourself? And that will tell us whether you are the perfect candidate, or whether you are kind of average, or whether you are just not a good candidate for hair transplant. If you're thinking about hair transplant and you're not sure whether you're a good candidate or a bad candidate, or you're not sure about which clinic to go for, why don't you contact me and I'll help you. Details in the description below. Take care and see you next time.